Hey YouTubers, I've since gifted my Q701 to one of my nephews, but he walked away from his PC, forgot that his headphone was on, yanked it, dropped it, and before you know it, I believe the solder in here gave out. So anyway, this is a follow-up to my Q701 base mod, but this is really more about soldering back in the wire in case it does break. So if you saw my other vid, basically it's the same thing, right? You could get two thumbtacks. What is really helpful is if you had these watch pin tools and place it one near the Q over here, the other exactly 180 almost, right? Give it a slight counterclockwise twist, and then you're gonna hear a click. And after that click, you're gonna just be able to pop it right up. Just be careful because there is a foam padding under here that you don't wanna lose, as you can see here. Now the reason why I told you to put it at the Q is because that's where there's 3 of these notches and that's where one of them is. So you apply pressure directly where one of the connection is. Next step is you're gonna wanna get a PH1 screw tip and get 2 of these screws out. Doesn't matter the order as long as you get it out. And yes, that is a Lola holding down the Q701, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this video right now. Now once those 2 screws are removed, there are 2 tabs over here, but basically this just pops straight out. The clipping force is actually here. You're going to pull out the bottom, you're going to see the tabs here. Those don't actually hold it in place, it positions it, but the main force is right here on these 2. So as mentioned, take your thumb or whatnot, pop one side out as you can see there, then do the other side, and that's it. You got it off. As you were doing that, you should be ultra careful because these wires are directly connected here to the XLR jack, as you can see, and already as you notice, this yellow wire is the one that came loose. Thus, he's not hearing anything out of this cup. Now, there's a total of 3 wires, a white wire, red one, and the yellow one. The yellow one is the one that's displaced right now, and that's actually connected down there. Now, unfortunately, he has actually snapped off the wiring too. If that's the same case with you, you're actually going to have to strip off a little bit of this wire and solder it back on there. So this is where it gets very tricky because all of this is plastic, and you'll be working with a hot soldering iron. So the moment you touch this plastic, it will insta melt. I mean, to be honest with you, you burnt it a little bit on the inside. It's not the end of the world, but still, for those who like to keep their headphones in immaculate condition, you just gotta be ultra careful here. And if you're not handy with tools or you don't have the most steady of hands, I suggest you just stop right now, seek professional help. If you want to continue on, don't say that I didn't warn you. Do this at your own risk. You're gonna have to find a way to solder this, and this is where a tweezer will come in handy. As for stripping the wire, this wire is so thin and delicate, you basically just, if you have some fingernail, just pinch it, pull it right off. I perhaps expose a little bit too much, and you want to twist the wires together so they're nice and tight. And then get your soldering iron, heat it up, grab a tweezer. You're going to want to heat that up first, get it so that it's melted, then basically touch this wire right to it and hold it in place while removing the soldering iron. Would definitely be helpful if you could keep the headphone super steady or have a friend help out. You want to actually push this corner so that you kind of expose this wire as much as possible, so thereby reducing the chance of burning the plastic around there. Again, do this at your own risk. In this case, given that the old wire actually snapped off, there is a piece of that old wire there and may interfere with getting the new wire on. So I'm actually going to use a tweezer, grab the other end of it. If your solder is hot enough, you should just be able to touch it and pull it out. And there you can see that's the old wire. Dispose of that. Now it would actually help to put just a little bit more dab of solder on there, not too much. Gonna also want to tin the cable to get some solder on there as well. Now this is going to be a little tricky doing it single-handedly, of course, which is why, again, if you had a friend to help, it would be super helpful. So there you go. That is nice and tinned. And then now you want to hit the post and then just touch the 2 together. That's it. Now remember, as you finish soldering, try to stay very still because if you move a little bit, you're going to create what's known as a co-solder joint, and that's super brittle. So I'm going to just gently lay this down here. I'm going to give it a quick test. So I'm actually going to use JLab's burn-in file because I don't want any copyright issue. I'm going to connect this in. And a quick listen shows me that this cup is good, so we're now good to reassemble this thing. Reassembly is simply the reverse. You're going to get those 2 screws back on, but before you do, you got to be very, very careful here because these wires, they can pinch in between here. So you're going to just gently separate the wires apart, make sure that it won't catch as you're placing this back on, especially this wire. You don't want to bend it too much because that's another solder joint, that's another solder joint. Don't want to break one in the process of fixing this. So here we go. Going to line up the tops first, as mentioned, because you're going to snap this back in. But first, get the tabs through here on the bottom so that it's almost in. Make sure that none of your wires are catching down there around the screw post. Then go ahead and snap these 2 back in. That's one. That's the second. Double check that the wire is not being pinched. And then go ahead and close that tight. So now you're ready to go ahead and replace the 2 screws. Remount the exterior grill here. Push that in. Get your thumbtacks or your watch pin tool and give it a quick twist clockwise. There we go. That's locked into place. And there you have it. You're back to enjoying your stereo bliss, or in my case, the burning tool. As you can see, both cups are working fine again now. Thanks again for watching.